Good morning. This is Virtual PBX admin training. I'm going to give people just a second here to get logged in and join us, as well as to make sure that my audio is working here. All right, so looks like I'm a little behind today, so I do apologize. But let's go ahead and get started here, since it is 10 o'clock Pacific time. All right, so here we have our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. Now, you can also navigate here via the virtualpbx.com website. And just go to virtualpbx.com. You'll see a blue bar at the top of the page, and that will have a link to the login area here. It also has a link to the support pages, so you can use that to see various guides, actually guides about the features I'm going to talk about today. Now, to log in, we need your email address. All right, so if you just signed up if you just signed up with us, it's the email address you use for login to sign up with us, right? Otherwise, it'd be the email address your system admin used to create your user. We need your password, which should have been emailed to you, and then lastly, we need your account name, right, or your company name. Now, capitalization is important. Now, on the username, it should all be lowercase, but your company name, it needs to match what we have on file for you. Now, if for some reason you don't have your password, right, you never got the email, down here at the bottom right, just above the sign-in link, you want to click on this forgot your info link. We still need your email address, right? That's not going to change, but we need one of these two pieces of information. So we need either your account name or we need a phone number on the account. All right, you click on reset password, you'll get an email. It's going to have a link to let you log in, and then you would create a new password. After you update your password, the system's going to log you back out and send you back here to our login page. And that's mostly so you can use the Remember Me box. And then you would click on sign in. In general, we do recommend making use of either Chrome or Firefox to access the dash pages. The later version of Microsoft Edge that uses the Chromium engine should also work without issues. Other browsers may have other issues. At least, like Safari can usually log in, but sometimes some of the pages don't display properly, for example. All right, so here I've been taken to the dashboard page, right? This is basically a quick look at my system. And the reason it takes me here right off the bat is because I've logged into this account many times. For you, that first time you log in, it's actually going to take you to the account page, right? I can get back to by clicking on my name up here towards the top right. And here I'm taken right to my user information. So this is where you would want to change your own password, for instance. Right? I click over here, and then I can type in a new password. This is for my own personal user. The other thing, though, is under the account level here, since I'm a system admin, you could also go here, for instance, and change your time zone for your company. Now, this is a test account, so it's not considered a live account. So for your accounts, under where it says user, you'll have another section here for billing information. That's where you would go to update your credit card information, see your invoices, see your service plan. You can also update the billing contact, right? So that's the person who gets the invoices and effectively owns the account as far as we're concerned. Once you're done here, go ahead and click on the close box to the top right, and then you'll be taken back to your dashboard. Now, also along the top, many of you will have a D&D toggle to the right of your name, right? D&D standing for Do Not Disturb. That allows you to just click on it, right? It'll move it over to the right, and now you're not going to get calls, right? Calls to your user, we're going to go directly to voicemail, right? You won't be offered calls from a group, and basically, any like transfers would also go straight to voicemail. The reason I don't have it here on my user is because my user is part of an Acd queue. Once you are added to an Acd queue, the D&D toggle is removed, right? Because D&D and Acd queues does not work well together. Then we have the little help icon here. First up, we got chat with us. This will open up a chat window, typically to the bottom right of your browser. That allows you to chat with a support person, right, to walk you through one of the features. Here we have the online store, right? This will open up a new tab and take you to store.virtualpbx.com. And that's where you would buy like a VoIP phone or a router, etc. Here we have the Learn More link. This also opens a new tab and takes you to our support pages. So you can see actual individual guides for a particular feature. Now, there's a blank spot here. This can be populated by the web phone link. So after you add a web phone to your user, usually by the next time you log in, the web phone link will show up here. The web phone allows you to use Chrome or Firefox to make and receive calls. And so it's a kind of soft phone without having to add additional software. Right here, the three horizontal line icon, menu icon, we also sometimes refer to it as the hamburger icon. This takes you to other features of Dash. We'll primarily be here in the dashboard for the majority of the training. The training should take about an hour and a half, give or take. But we will be getting to some of these, we'll be getting at least briefly to all of these. Some, like dynamic caller ID, are plan specific, so I'll make sure to call those out so you know you may need to change your plan to get those features. And then we have the logout icon here to the far right. Right here in the middle here, I got total users, right? These are the people who are on my account, right? They make and receive calls. Most of our plans are based on a per user basis. So that means if you add more users, you increase your bill. Right? Likewise, if you remove users, you decrease your bill. Total devices, I have 41 devices. And then I have a breakdown here. Now, Dash was designed with VoIP phones in mind, right? If you don't already know, VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol, right? So it uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. Now, so first up we have is a soft phone. Soft phone is a software application that acts like a phone. So it still uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. So it's a type of VoIP phone. Now, this bucket, for lack of a better word, includes both the Virtual Pbx Softphone application as well as any other softphone application you might be using or want to use. Right? It's just a general term for, hey, here's all your softphones. All right, next up, we have cell phones. I'm sure most of us are familiar with those. So yeah, the Dash system can send calls to cell phones and landlines, and I'll get into that in a little bit more detail later. Then we have the web phone, right? So that Chrome or Firefox-based phone that is a VoIP phone, right? Because it is using software. And since you're using a browser, you do need an internet connection. And then we have a SIP phone, right? SIP phone is a physical VoIP phone, right? So it's a device that sits on your desk, right? You could pick up the handset, dial out on it. Now, just for clarity's sake, right? So VoIP phone, that's the general term, right? Covers all devices that use an internet connection to make and receive calls. SIP is a subtype, right? It's a particular kind of VoIP phone, and it uses a particular type of protocol, right? There are other kinds of VoIP phones on the market that use different protocols. So when you're out shopping, you want to make sure that you're looking for a SIP compliant or SIP compatible phone. Down here, I have, unregistered devices, right? I have 3. So it's saying that 3 of my SIP phones, which in this case is all 3 of them, I think, are unregistered, meaning they're not connected, right? So I can't send calls to them, so they're not working. Now that could be they're not plugged in, right? It could be they're having an internet outage at that location. Could be a router setting problem. Don't know. Down here, I have total numbers. This is total phone numbers on the account. And that means I have 35. Most of our plans include anywhere from 2 to 15 phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price, right? Now, in this case, I am over that. So I'm paying an overage for these extra phone numbers on a per monthly basis, right? So each number per month. To get the specifics of that for your plans, you'd want to talk to our account services team. They can let you know for certain how many phone numbers are included in your plan and then what the overage is for each additional number. Then down here, I have 2 breakdowns. The first is an assigned number or versus spare numbers, right? An assigned number means I'm using it, right? Someone can call that number and potentially speak to somebody or send a fax, leave a voicemail, or join a conference, right? In some facet, that number connects, right? Spare number, right, counts towards my allotment, but not currently in use. So for instance, if I had a special New Year's special going on, right, I could add a phone number dedicated to that promotion, right, and have it running through New Year's, probably shortly thereafter. But now that we're at the end of March, it's like, okay, I don't really need calls about a promotion that's no longer applies, right? It's no longer in effect. So I can take that number out of service, put it in spare numbers. So now when some people call it, they won't get through, right? And they'll get a busy tone. So that way they know, oh, that promotion's over, right? They're looking at an old ad for whatever purposes. Then I have another breakdown here, USDID and US toll-free. US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? An 800 number, 888, 877, all the way down to 833 currently. USDID just means a US local number, right? So if you want a phone number in Miami, Florida, that would fall under USDID. Same as if you got a number in Portland, Oregon, and anywhere in between. You can have international numbers on your account. If you're interested in adding an international number, you want to email our porting team. That's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you want a phone number in. Now, each country has its own regulations related to phone numbers, so they may have additional requirements. Right? Some don't care. Some will just give us a number. Others, will require proof of presence, like a utility bill. Others want, your proof of incorporation and proof of address and a bunch of other things. So whatever those requirements are, the porting team will let you know. And then once we get those, we then go about getting the number to your account. Now I've got conference bridges. This just means I've enabled conferencing on 3 of my users, right? So I have 3 users who can moderate or host a conference. Over here to the top right, I have my main numbers. So these 4 phone numbers all act in the same way, right? They're all going to the same part of my system. They're all going to have the same main greeting, right? And since I have 4, it's apparent that I can have multiple main numbers. A conference number, I currently only have 1, but I can have multiple conference numbers if I want. This is the phone number everyone dials to join the conference room, right? Whether they're my staff members, my vendors, or my clients. Faxbox number, this 775 number, you can only have the one main Faxbox number. And this is the number people would dial to send you a fax. Now we have the company directory. When you click the download link here to the right, that is going to download a CSV file to your device. So you can see, your users' names, their devices, their extension numbers. The softphone directory, also a download link. This is for use with the Virtual PBX desktop softphone application. Basically, you download this file, you then upload it to that Virtual PBX desktop softphone app, and that'll allow you to see the status of the other softphones on your account, or the other Virtual PBX desktop softphones on your account. So if your entire staff is making use of only the Virtual PBX desktop softphone app, you can see the presence, right? Their status, right? Whether they're on a call or not. If you have a mixed use, right? Well, so some people have Yealink phones, some people have cell phones, what have you, then the directory is not quite as useful because, again, you only see the status of their soft phones, right? So if my coworker Jeff happens to be using his Yealink phone, I'm not going to see that he's on a call via my soft phone. All right, store discount code. Just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount in our online store, right? store.virtualpbx.com. And then lastly, down here, we have the account realm. Now, the account realm is used in a couple things, right? It's unique for each account. But in terms of use, in terms of a third-party soft phone, right? So someone else's soft phone application, or even a VoIP phone that doesn't show up under the auto provision list. This is one of the three key pieces of information you would need to program or provision that soft phone application or VoIP phone. The other thing it's used for is to send a fax out. So on Dash, sending out a fax is via email. And what that means is you create an email like you normally do, right? Put in the to field. Instead of putting like my cousin Bob's email address, I put in the +, the number 1, the area code and phone number I'm faxing to, little @ symbol, and then I put in my account realm. After that, I just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file, and then I click send. Right? The Dash system does not look at the subject line of the email. It doesn't look at the body of the email. Right? So anything you type there that will not get transmitted. Right? It looks at the to field, it looks at the from field, it looks at the attachment. Right? The system's only going to look at one attachment. So one attachment per email. Make sure you don't have any signature files associated with your email. All right, up here in this blue bar where it says Sandbox Training, right? That's my account name. Here I've got caller ID. This is your company caller ID, or the default caller ID the system will use for a couple different features. Now, this pull down, which unfortunately doesn't show on my streaming software, you can select any of your main numbers, right? The list of numbers here to the right. Then you got the company caller ID name, or CNAME. This allows you to input up to 15 characters. That includes spaces and special characters that we then associate with your phone number. All right. Next up, you have the company emergency information, or E911. This wants a North American address. And then you would click on Save Changes. Once you click on Save Changes, that CNAME information, it gets transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAME, right? So when you pick up a VoIP phone, you make an outbound call, right? Your call goes out, it goes through a number of carriers before it reaches your destination. If any of those carriers that the call routes through does not support CNAME, your CNAME information does not end up at your destination, right? Unfortunately, that's not something we can control. It's the carriers who don't support CNAME are typically either very small or very specialized, like a very small, specific region. So it doesn't usually come up too often, especially when making calls to landlines. However, if you're making calls to cell phones, which is probably fairly common, these cell phone carriers control what shows up on the cell phone's displays on their network. Right? So if you ever seen a call come in on your cell phone and you see like spam risk or telemarketer, right? That's your cell phone carrier trying to be helpful, right? They're saying, hey, this has shown up as, or has been reported as a spam risk to us previously. And that's why it's putting that way on your phone, right? We don't control that, right? Your mobile cell phone carrier controls that. Likewise, your mobile cell phone carrier controls if the CNAME information is displayed. So for me, for instance, if I want CNAME to show up on every call that comes to my cell phone, my carrier wants me to pay an extra $10 per month. I'm personally not willing to do that. I kind of like, keeping my money as much as I possibly can. So I don't pay it. So I don't get CNAM on every call. Some calls come through, others don't. So that's something to be aware of. So any changes, make sure you click on Save Changes. Hold music. On Dash, hold music is defined as after a call has reached a user, and then the user then presses hold on their VoIP phone. That's when the hold music file will play. Now on Dash, you can upload your own hold music. You can see here I already have an MP3 file selected, but I could click on Browse to find other files on my computer. Dash will play back MP3, .wav, and .ogg files. You want to make sure that these files are recorded in mono, not in stereo, and that they're under 1 megabyte in file size. And then you would click on the little upload arrow icon here, right, the up arrow icon, and then after it finishes uploading, you would click on Save. And this would be the default hold music for all of your users whenever they press hold on their VoIP phones. All right, hours is part of the main number. So let's just go to the main number section. So up here at the top, we got main company numbers. So these are my 4 main numbers. If I don't want to use a number any longer, right, I can click unassign from it or next to it. So now it's no longer a main number, right? It's been moved to be a spare number right now, right? Not removed from my account yet. Now, if I want to add numbers back or add more numbers or add my first number, right? So you have the option first to add from your spare numbers, right? So these are numbers you already added to your account. You're already paying for them, right? So it makes sense that you have the option to use them. You would just click on the box in front and then click Add Selected Numbers, and then it would show up. You also have the option to buy numbers, right? So this would be getting new numbers to your account. You have local and toll-free. Toll-free, pretty easy. You just choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. You click on Search, and we just wait for it to populate. And now you see the available toll-free numbers. Now, these number lists that show up, these are dynamic, meaning you are competing in real time with other people who may want these numbers. So you don't want to take too long on a number you really like. But you would just click on Add a Number. You see it's here in my cart. It repeats the number here, as well as the option to remove it, meaning, oh, I don't want that number after all. You can add multiple numbers at the same time, and then you would just click By Number. Now, the system double checks, right? Make sure someone didn't grab it right before you, which has happened to me during a training, actually, a while back. But once it verifies, yes, the number's there, it then adds it to your account, and here it is ready to be in use. Right? For local numbers, slightly more complicated in that you need to know the area code. Right? So say you want an LA area code phone number, you do 310, it says there's nothing available. Right? This means that that area code is exhausted. This will happen on several like major metropolitan areas. So in this case, your best option, right? Go back to search and do a search for a different area code. You might need to use Google to double check overlays or nearby area codes for Los Angeles. So 310 has an overlay in existence already called namely the 424. Right? So there's several numbers here. Right? But there's also 323, which is also nearby. So there's other phone numbers nearby that I can get, if not actually in the area. Now, if you absolutely have to have a number that shows up as an exhausted area code, you can email our porting team to see if they can do what's called a back order, right? Which means we're basically putting out there saying, hey, if say a 310 phone number becomes available, we want to try to grab it, right? So like, i.e., someone moves out of LA and says, I don't want an LA number, I'm cutting all ties, right? I want, new chapter, right? Clean break. So they get a whole new number, 310 number becomes available, we try to get it, and then we add it to your account. Now, because of that dynamic of we're waiting for someone to give up a number, when you place a back order, we don't know when it's going to happen, right? When it could be completed. There's no way for us to give you an ETA. any number you add here, you do have a little gear icon here. So you can set up the caller ID, right? So the outbound CNAM, as well as turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM, right? So that would then get transmitted to the phones for your users. Here you can add E911 for each of your phone numbers, right? So each of your phone numbers can have a different E911 address, which allows you then for your VoIP phones, you can assign the E911 information to a specific phone number so it has the correct address for that device, right? So if you have people in multiple locations, you can then make sure the VoIP phones have the proper E911 information. We also have Prepend. This is for VoIP phone users, where you can put additional text that shows up on the VoIP phone's display as part of the caller ID. It lets them know, or lets your staff members know, at least a heads up about what the call is about, right? So I could do new location, right? And click Save Changes. So now when someone dials this 866 number, once it finishes saving here, right? It goes to one of my staff members on their VoIP phone. It'll say new location and then the area code and phone number of the person calling in. So now my staff member knows, oh, someone's calling in about the new location, right? Whatever promotion I have running, or maybe I'm hiring for the new location, right? So then I can send them to my HR staff, for instance. Right, so once you have main numbers, you have office hours strategy. By default, if you just signed up with us, you're on 24-hour open office, right? Meaning, hey, you're ready to take calls, right? Or at least, or rather, the phone numbers on your system will not ring busy, right? They'll try to connect. Custom office hours, this is what I have set up here. For each day of the week that I'm open, right, I put a check mark. And then I set my open hours in these boxes here to the right in 24-hour/military time. Now at the bottom, you can just see it on YouTube. I have the option to be closed for lunch, and then I can put my lunch hours again in that 24-hour or military time. I can also say, hey, I'm not going to be closed for lunch. So now any changes you make, you just click on Save Changes, which is probably being cut off on YouTube. Next up, you have office holidays. Your first decision here is, are you going to be closed for holidays? Right? If you are, you put a check mark. And then over here to the right, you have Add Holiday. You click on this, it's a pull down. Single day, date range, advanced. Right? So single day, like I have here for New Year's Eve, I give it a name. I select the month and the date. Right? Click on Save Changes. Date range, just like I have here for Xmas break, right? Christmas break. Give it a name, start date, end date. Notice that there's no year indicator here. So you want to avoid a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. In the past, that has caused problems. Currently, it works fine, but I like to have that caveat in there just in case something changes in the future. And then advanced is like I have set up here for Thanksgiving, right? I gave it a name, and then I chose the third Thursday in November, right? So choose a month, middle pull down, 1st through 5th, as well as last, and then day of the week, right? And I usually advise adding one holiday or removing one holiday at a time and then clicking Save Changes just to make sure the system properly addresses every holiday you want. Right, next up, we have incoming call handling. This is how your system is handling calls to your main numbers, right? So these 4 phone numbers, right? I have these subtabs, right? Open hours, my after hours, and holidays, right? If I had left lunch hours as, being closed for lunch hours, there'd be a lunch hours tab as well, right? So during these times or days, for the case of holidays, how do I want my system to handle calls on my main number? Right, so first option here, call comes in, goes to the virtual receptionist, right, or auto attendant for some of you who have been around phone systems before. You click on virtual receptionist because it's a link and it opens up this box here. And on the left, we have the main menu. Right? This is what people press on their phone to navigate through your phone system. Down here is add route, right? So that's where you would add more menu options, right? I click on this. Now I have a new row. Now, unfortunately, the pull downs don't work here, but in this first pull down, I have 0 through 9, the star key, and the default action. And then here, the second pull down, I decide where it's going to go. So I'll go up here, for instance. Right, so the directory, right, smart PBX directory, user directory, dial by name directory, whatever term you want to use, but it allows your inbound caller to find the person they want to speak to. Right, users means you can send it to a specific person on your account. Call queues, if you're making use of Acd Cues, you can send a menu option to a call queue. Devices, you can send it to a specific phone. Now, the caveat here is you want to make sure that phone has its own built-in voicemail. Otherwise, the person calling could just sit there and ring forever until they hang up, right? In which case, you won't get any idea of who was calling because there's no voicemail. That would be like many VoIP phones don't necessarily have built-in voicemail. Media file, this means you're playing a greeting file, right? mp3.wave.ogg. This would be good for like hours of operation or directions, but once the media file stops playing, the call ends. Scroll down because I still have lots of media files on this account. All right, next we have groups, right? Ring groups or departments, right? A group of people. These are related to Acd Cues, but advantage of groups is there's no extra cost associated with them, and you can answer calls on any device. Advanced call flows, this is if you're making use of submenuing, right? You want like 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, right? Those will be your initial menu options, but each one of those would go to a secondary attendant, which would then have respectively an English greeting and a Spanish greeting, and then their own menu options. So that way, like your Spanish greeting or Spanish menu would go to your Spanish speaking staff members, right? Whereas your English menu would go to your English speaking staff members. And then voicemail boxes, right? So someone can leave a message. And let's just go to the front desk group there. Over here on the right, we have greetings, right? So greetings is where you say thank you for calling, right? You can include things like special promotions, your directions, your hours if you want to. But the main point of your main greeting should be to give your inbound caller directions, right? How are they going to navigate through the phone system, right? What does pressing 1 do? Pressing 2, right? 1 for support, 2 for sales, that sort of thing. First up, text-to-speech. You can type in your own greeting. Now, the system will take that and use a computerized voice to read it off. You have up to 250 characters to type in, right? Characters like letters, spaces, not words. When you click update and save changes, the system makes use of the same file name, right? So I'm right now under my open hours. So when I type in a new greeting here, it's going to save it as main open hours menu TTS. Right, now let's say by tomorrow I realize, oh, that greeting doesn't sound quite right. I need to adjust it, right? So I come back in and I edit it here. Again, click update, save changes. The system then, again, saves it as main open hours menu TTS. So now I have 2 files with the same name. I don't know the difference between the 2 of them just by looking at their file name. My recommendation is after you first create a text-to-speech greeting, on the left, there's a greetings tab. Find that text-to-speech greeting you first created, rename it to something that you can recognize or that identifies it to you, right? Even if it's just saying first main greeting, right? That way it's something different. So you know, oh wait, I made a change. So I should have a second main greeting, right? And you can look for that and swap between them, right? But anytime you type in something here, click on update, save, and then save changes. You also have the ability to upload your own file, right? .wave, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte. Just choose the file, find it on your computer. It will click update, save, and save changes. You can choose from an existing recording, right? So this will be any other media file that you've already added to the account. This is a pull down, which unfortunately doesn't show quite properly. But this is the problem with having the main open hours menu TTS, right? If you have multiple of them, because you won't know which one is which. But any file you already have, you can click Update, Save Changes. Recorded over the phone. Let's set that out here. Okay. So by default, the system wants you to use a VoIP phone on the account, right? That's what it means when it says pick up a phone registered in this account. It means, right? That's it's the system's way of saying use a VoIP phone, right? Because it knows it's associated with the account, so it's secure, right? It's a security feature. If you don't want to do that, or for instance, you just ordered the VoIP phones and they're 3 to 5 business days away, and you're like, I kind of want to get this recording in. I want to see how the system's going to work. What you can do is under the settings, you have this one right here, allow outside recording. If you click that to on, right, you have to hit save and save changes. Then this allows you to change your main greeting with a cell phone or a landline. Right? So then you don't have to use a VoIP phone. You still need to know this PIN number, right? This PIN number is going to change from account to account. It's also unique for this time of day. So again, I'm in my open hours, as it says up here at the top. So this PIN number only works during my open hours. So now I would call my main number. And if I don't already have a greeting in place, the system tells you no greeting has been recorded for this menu. It will then prompt you for the PIN number. Right? Follow the instructions, record it over the phone. It will then be saved on your system. It's usually given numbers as part of its file name. Now, let's say you've been with us for a while, right? Your company has been using Virtual PBX, say 6 months to a year. You're a relatively recent hire, or maybe you just got recently promoted, and your boss says, you're in charge of the phone system. We need to change the main greeting. And you just kind of look at them going, huh? Okay. So you have to dive in here. You can still record over the phone with a greeting file in place. The warning, I guess I should give you is, or that I want to make sure to convey, is when you have a greeting file already in place, right? You call your main number, right? Goes to virtual receptionist. You enter in the open hours PIN. Right? The system recognizes it and will let you record a new main greeting. It doesn't let you select the file name you're going to use. So what it does is it overwrites the existing file that you heard when you called in. Right? So greeting A was playing, you called in, you enter PIN number, you record new greeting. Greeting file A is still there. It's just the new recording that you used. In some cases, that's exactly what you wanted to do. Right? Oh, we don't need that old recording, just replace it with a new one. But come holiday time, you want to make sure if you're recording over the phone that you're not recording your normal main greeting for non-holiday times, because there's no way for us to recover it. Professional recording service, you click order here, it's going to open a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings, where you can order a greeting from them. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They handle their own billing. They deliver to you via email, so then you would simply upload the file. All right, settings. First one here is number of retries on misdial. This is how many times the inbound caller can make a mistake. All right, so, and it's actually somewhat tied to the dialing timeout. So, caller calls in. Here's my main greeting. And actually here, we need to get rid of that. So we still have a default action there. All right, so we have 1 through 3 default action. Right, so the call comes in, the person hears the greeting, they press 5. Right, now that's not a valid option, and let's say we don't have an extension number 5. Now the system, after it hears that button press of 5, waits till count of 10. Right, because of the dialing timeout. It's making sure it's giving the person time to enter additional digits in case they're trying to enter a multi-digit extension number. So after it hits 10, it says, oh, you meant 5. Now it checks, that's not a valid option, right? So they get, that caller gets one retry, says, okay, that's that, that initial attempt, that's their first try. So now they get their one retry. The system plays the greeting again. The inbound caller presses 7 the second time, right? System still waits to a count of 10. Says that's not a valid option. Now there's no more retry attempts, right? Because they already had their one. So then in this case, the system will send the caller to the default action, right? So sending it to this voicemail box. If I don't have a default action, then after that failed attempt, the system says we don't recognize your entry and says goodbye and ends the call. Generally, dialing retries anywhere from 1 to 3 is typically plenty. The dialing timeout, I usually recommend sending it to 5 or lower, like anywhere from 2 to 5. That's usually enough for most people to enter an extension number. Now, allow outside recording we covered. By default, it's off, but again, you can turn it on at any time. I do recommend turning it off again once you are done recording your main greeting over the phone, because if you leave it on, somebody, because there's always these people who like to mess around with the companies, they'll try to call in and try to figure out how to change your main greeting. And if they do, suddenly you lose your main greeting. Allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on, right? So inbound caller, they can enter an extension number. If it's a valid extension number, the system will pass the call through, right? If you turn that off, that means your inbound caller can only press these menu options, right? Anything else is considered invalid. And then lastly here, we have to suppress the playing of invalid entry, right? By default, that's off, meaning that the invalid entry message will play when they reach that last attempt. If you don't want that message to play, you just turn this on. Any changes you make to the main menu, the greetings, or the settings, you need to click Save here, and then Save Changes here under Incoming Call Handling. All right, second option, right? Call comes in, we're offering it to Aaron. This is a pull down. So you can select any user on the account. Scrolling down further, you can send it to a call queue if you're making use of queues. You can send it to a specific device, right? So a specific phone. And by default, it will ring for 20 seconds. Then next up, we have a media file, which means you can have a greeting play. I don't personally recommend this because after the media file plays, it goes to the virtual receptionist. Then you have another media file playing, right? So back-to-back media files might confuse your inbound caller. We scroll down here further. We have groups, right? So you can send it to any department essentially. And advanced call flows, because if you have multiple auto attendants that are available in main menu, this could be a routing option. But we will use the front desk group. All right, so calls come in. I'm offering it to my front desk group, right? My receptionist group, my operator group. If they're not able to pick up, then they're being sent to the virtual receptionist. Now, right now, I'm still under my open hours, so it's that same receptionist we were just looking at. If I change this to after hours, right? Can still do the same setup here. Right, so again, same group, but now it's going to my after hours virtual receptionist. Right, so I would likely have different menu options and most likely a different greeting play. Third option here, right? Call comes in. You can offer it to user, group, media file, call queue, devices, etc. There's one additional option though, right here at the bottom, skip to voicemail. So call comes in, I'm sending it right to a voicemail box. That's what the second pull down is, only voicemail boxes. So for holidays, right, that might make sense. To say, hey, we're closed for the holidays, send you to the voicemail box where you can say, yes, we are closed for the holidays. And then people can leave a message. This fourth option only shows up because I have secondary attendants that are set to display in main menu. Multiple auto attendants is a plan-specific feature, which we're about to get into. If you're interested in that, you would need to talk to our account services team. If I didn't have multiple auto attendants, like it's not, like let's say it's not a plan feature for me, then this box would not even show up. I'd only have these main three. The important thing to remember about under incoming call handling, any change you make on the virtual receptionist, you're clicking save twice, right? You click save under the virtual receptionist, and then you click save changes under incoming call handling. All right, main conference number, you can add for spare or by new, right? Because you can have multiple numbers. You also have a custom greeting, which is text-to-speech. If you turn it on, you just type in up to 250 characters. If this is disabled or you don't bother enabling it in the first place, the system will still say welcome to the conference and prompt the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and the PIN number. The main fax box, you can only have the one main fax box number. So if I didn't have one here, I'd have the option to add from spare or buy new. Once you've added a number to the fax box, you want to click edit fax box here. And then first up, we have the inbound notification email. You want to put an email address here. And this is the email address that the system will send notifications about an inbound fax. Right? So a fax came through, says, hey, here's your fax. It'll give, in the body of the email, it'll give you like the date, the time, and the phone number. And there'll be a PDF attachment that you can then click on and view the attachment now, or the fax. One thing to keep in mind, if someone dials your fax box number, right, they hear fax tones and then they hang up, that's going to generate an email to this email address saying that there was a failed inbound fax attempt. All right, the email permissions here, this is designed to put your company domain email address in here, right? So that way, anyone at your company can send a fax out without having to be a user on your Dash account. You could also put someone's a specific email address here as well. But that means that only that one email address can send faxes out. And then you want to click on Save Changes. All right, auto attendants. This is for multiple auto attendants, right? So a plan-specific feature, right? The first use case I've already kind of talked about, right? Submenuing, right? One for English, two for Spanish. The other reason you would have multiple auto attendants would be if you actually own several small businesses, right? So each business has its own main number and own main greeting. But you have the same staff between your multiple businesses answering the calls, right? So you can say you have a dog walking business and a cleaning business, right? Each would have a very different main greeting and would have its own phone number, but you could have the same staff people answering the calls. All right, so adding an attendant, you click up here at the top, add attendant. You need to give it a name, and then you need to give it an extension number. Then you would click create attendant. Now, once it's created, you can click on the name, and then you have the option here. It starts off by default being unavailable in main menu, meaning it's a standalone attendant, right? It's not part of your main system. You can click on that though, and now it says available in main menu, meaning now it's a sub-menu option, right? And it will show up in a couple of different other areas as an option. Right, like Spanish here, right, should be available because it's a sub-menu option. Now, your attendants can have their own phone numbers, right, which would make sense for a standalone attendant to have. Right, you can update the caller ID, the E911, and Prepend. The extension number is mostly used for your staff, right? Your staff members literally can transfer calls from one business to the other by knowing the auto attendant's extension number. They can also transfer to the phone number from a VoIP phone. Then you have the little wrench icon here to the right under settings. And you see I have open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? That information matches what we set up under main menu. So any phone number you have associated with the auto attendants or your main menu are going to follow your business hours, your open hours, your after hours, your lunch hours, and your holidays. Right? But beyond that, it's a virtual receptionist, so you would click Add Route under main menu, you would click a greeting, and you can adjust the settings. All right, devices shows your devices on the account. Green means it's registered, meaning we can send calls to it. Right? Red means unregistered, so we can't send calls to it. Right? Could be someone hasn't logged into their soft phone or something's unplugged. Black means it's been disabled. Right? And you can click here to turn it back on, and the page will reload, and now it's green. Up here at the top is where you can add new devices. The first one is a SIP phone, right? That's that physical VoIP phone. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some of them have a lot of models, right? Some not as many. No matter what, though, you do want to look for your make and model of the phone you want to work with or that you bought. You need to give it a device name, right? I usually use the person's name and then the word phone, right? So Bob's phone. Pretty easy. Hopefully I know who Bob is, right? Or Bob Smith's phone if I need to use address, last names as well. Then you need the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each phone. It's usually a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, it's often also set up under like basic settings or status settings, labeled MAC. So then you would enter that information here. You click on Create Device. And then after that, you only would need to go to Users and assign that device to a user. Right? So within the dashboard, you're done. However, on the phone, you need to access the phone's web user interface, right? The web UI. And you need to enter a URL. Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go here to get your config file. For the specifics of that, you want to go to our support pages, and you're looking for the document called Auto Provisioning Phones. That document will have screenshots for each of these manufacturers, so what to look for, the proper syntax for that URL, and normally a couple settings to double check, right? So basically, you go through it, enter in that URL, make sure the settings are right, you click save or confirm or update or whatever term they use, then you tell the phone to auto provision, right? The phone's going to reach out to the URL, get its config file. It's going to reboot probably a couple times. When it's done, if everything was entered in properly, it will turn up as a green device. That means you're ready to make and receive calls from it. Right. Cell phone and landline are basically the same. Right? You give it a device name, right? Angela's phone. Then you put in the phone number, right? +1, area code and phone number. You click Create Device. Now, once a device is created, go under Advanced Options here, right? This is the default settings for a cell phone or landline. So when we send a call out to a cell phone or landline, right? So call comes in, enters your extension number, we're sending out to your cell phone, right? Your cell phone will ring. Hopefully you'll pick up. When you pick up, you're going to hear a message from the system. Specifically, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there. Yes, you want to take this call. Right? It then connects the call to you. You can speak to that person who called in. Now, that might not be what you want to happen. Like, for instance, let's say you're adding a cell phone, but really what you're doing is you're sending calls to an automated answering service for your after hours. Well, your automated answering service doesn't know when to press 1. So in that instance, or for that example, right here where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail, you want to put a check mark in front of that and then click on Save Changes. So now when we send the call, right, that phone will ring. The answering service picks up. As soon as we hear that pickup tone, we treat it like a connected call, so we send the call through. Right? There's no need to press 1 at that point. Now, if we're actually sending it to your cell phone in reality, and you have it set up this way, right? So you don't have to press 1 to answer the call anymore. Right? You just pick up, call will connect. But if for some reason you don't pick up and your cell phone voicemail picks up, right? We still hear a pickup tone. So that inbound caller ends up on your cell phone's voicemail box, not on the dash voicemail box. Some people want that. Some people definitely do not. So that part, if it's your actual cell phone, that's a personal preference. The other thing that can come up sometimes is this one here, keep original caller ID. So customer memory calls into your system, gets out to your cell phone, your phone starts ringing, you look at the number, you're like, I don't recognize that, and I've already had, 5 of these extend my auto warranty calls today. I'm letting it go to voicemail. Right? So customer memory ends up in your voicemail. Let's say you're not able to get to that voicemail. Right? Kids are screaming and you have to, get them corralled and make sure they're okay. You try calling customer memory back. She's already moved on to one of your competitors. So to help avoid that, you could uncheck keep original caller ID. So now when customer Mary calls, instead of customer Mary's phone number showing up on your account, be your main company number. Right? Whatever number you have selected here, right? In this case, I have this 323 phone number. That's the number that would show up on my cell phone. So hopefully I would recognize my business phone number. And I'm like, okay, this is worth me trying to take. And make, see if I can complete the sale. Soft phone, when you add a soft phone on the devices page, you're only adding a third-party soft phone. There's no option to change it to be a Virtual Pbx soft phone. Right? You give it a name, and then you'd want to copy and paste the SIP username. Click on the SIP password box. You want to copy and paste that. You don't want to change it. Right? You want to copy the realm, and you use that information to program your third-party soft phone. Right? So if you're using Counterpass Bria soft phone, right? This is the information you would use to program that application. And then you click on Create Device and add the device to a user. If you want to add the Virtual Pbx Softphone app, then you need to do that on the users page, which we'll get to when we get to users. And you have a little wrench icon here next to the devices. So under advanced, you can double check the codecs. We use typically, Opus is typically for soft phones, right? G711A and G711U should also be on the right for physical phones, right? Yealinks, Cisco's, etc. The wrench icon under advanced also is where you can change the external caller ID, right, to any of your phone numbers. And here, let me go down to this one here. You can also adjust the E911, right? Select one of your phone numbers. Now you have to have an address associated with those phone numbers before you can add it to a device. All right, Greetings tab shows all your media files on the account. You have the name of the file, this source, right? Upload means you uploaded a file. TTS means it's text to speech. Right, see, I have a main open hours menu TTS here. And then recording means I recorded it over the phone. You can download any of these files by clicking on this download icon here. So that way you can listen to it. You have the little wrench icon here. That's where you would change the file name or delete the greeting completely if you know it's not necessary. Up here at the top, you can upload files right here. right? You give it a name, you find the file on your computer, then you would click on Create Greeting. That's when it would uploads it and then adds it to the account. It's not assigned anywhere, so then you can then assign it where you need it. Groups is short for ring groups or hunt groups. Basically a department. Up here at the top, you click Add Group. You give it a name, and then you give it an extension number. Right? Then you click and drag the people you want to be in the group. You click on Create Group. When that is done, you can then click on the name of any group. Right? You can change the name at any time. And then you have the group call attempts. Right? Those little arrows here to the right where you can increase or decrease as necessary. But this is how many times that the system will offer the inbound caller to your group members, right, to your team. Right, default is 1. So any changes you make here, make sure you click on Save Changes. Then click on the group members box. Now this shows my staff members who are in my group and the order that it's sending the calls to, or to them, excuse me. Along the top here, these are timestamps. This last one you can edit. It defaults to 120 seconds, right? 2 minutes. So right now, calls always go in this order. Now, these are sliders. So I could do things like this. I'm going to set up what's called blast ringing or ring all. Right? So now when a call gets offered, it rings all of them at once until one of them picks up. Now, for any user with multiple devices, whoops, right? From a call that comes from a group, all of their devices are going to ring, right? There's a user feature called Follow Me, where you can set the order of which devices will ring. That will only work when calls go directly to that user, right? Calls from a group, ignore the user settings. They're just, nope, I'm ringing all the devices. So if I, right, this is me, right? If I have a cell phone, a landline, and a soft phone, on my user, all 3 of those devices are going to ring at the same time. Now, when I'm on a call, so let's say I take that first call. Second call comes in. If my device has call waiting enabled, I'm going to hear a call waiting beep until one of my colleagues picks up the phone, right? If I don't want to do that, then I need to go into that device and turn off call waiting. So that way I won't hear the call waiting beep. Now I can click distribute, and now it equalizes out the call to the ringing time for each of my users, right? So they have an equal amount, but it's always going to ring in this order. Now let's say, for instance, I just got handed a new project, so I need to try to focus on that as much as possible, right? My boss told me, hey, this is high priority. So then I would want to come in here and change the order, right? Because I don't want to take all these calls immediately. I can click on my name and drag it down here to the bottom. Let's say Aaron here, he actually just finished a big project. And so it's probably best for him to start taking calls first. Now, I haven't changed the order yet, right? Because it's still I start at 0, right? So calls are going to come to me first. But I can click distribute again, and now Aaron's first. Right? Those are the only ringing strategies or call routing strategies you have for calls coming into a group. Right? Now, groups have an extension number. They can also have their own phone number. Right? Now, groups and Acd queues are related or similar. Queues can only have either an extension number or a phone number, right? They can't have both. Additionally, Acd queues, your staff members can only answer calls with a VoIP phone, right? So a SIP phone, a soft phone, even the web phone, right? They can't answer calls on a cell phone or a landline. Whereas in a group, I can. The other advantage that queues have is that your staff members have control, right? So once you're assigned to a group, right, as a user, you don't have any control about when you're ringing or when you're not. Right? Like if you go to lunch, your phones will still ring, whether you're at them or not. Whereas in a queue, you have the ability to set your status, right? Ready, unready, or away, or you can end your session. right? So when I go to lunch in a queue, I can mark myself away, go to lunch. I'm still in the queue, but I'm not going to be offered calls. Likewise, in the queue, at the end of my day, I can click end session, and now I'm completely out of the queue, so I won't even be accidentally offered a call. Whereas in a group, end of my day, doesn't matter. A call comes in, my phones will ring. Now, if I don't have a personal device on my user, then I won't care. But if it's my personal cell phone number, I could get calls after my shift is ended. Also, keep in mind, when you have a phone number directly on a group, right, that phone number does not follow your hours of operation, because it's not a main number or an auto attendant number. And so this number, right, on these groups, they're available 24/7. And groups can have multiple numbers, right? You can add from spare, buy new, and then you can have multiple numbers here. You also have the gear icon, so you can update caller ID, E911, etc. Groups have features, or they can have features. Ring back. So if you turn this on, or actually, let me go back. So call comes into a ring group, we're offering it to the group users. When our system picks up the ringing sound on your user's device, right, we pipe that back to the inbound caller, right, so they hear the ringing sound. If you don't want that ringing sound to be piped back to the inbound caller, that's why you would enable ringback, and then you would upload an mp3.ogg.wav file recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Right, then click on Save Changes. So call comes in, we send it to your user. We hear the ringing sound, but instead of playing that ringing sound back to the inbound caller, we play back whatever file you uploaded. Now, if for some reason we don't get that ringing sound from your staff member's device, then the inbound caller hears nothing. Like if we got a busy tone. Next action, if you enable this, it allows you to determine what the system will do if none of your staff members is able to pick up the call. All right, you have a pull down here. You can select sending it back to your main menu. You can send it to one of your secondary attendants that's available in main menu. You can send it to one of your call queues if you have them. Sorry about that, little coughing fit there. You can send it to a specific device, right? Specific phone. And scrolling down, you can send it to one of your other ring groups. You can send it to one of your users, and you can send it to a specific user's voicemail box. Or actually, it's a specific voicemail box, period, I should say. Allow call forward. If you enable this, you're allowing your users to make use of call forwarding, i.e. they're not going to be at their normal desk phone. And then caller ID prepend. This is for your VoIP phone users. You can add either additional text or numbers in front of the caller ID, again, to give your staff members a heads up about what the call might be about. Right. If you want to delete a group, I forgot to mention that, that's option here under the name. All right, numbers, this takes you to your phone numbers on your account, and it starts you off with numbers in use. So this lets you know where the numbers are going. You have the gear icon here, right? So you can adjust caller ID, E911, and prepend. Spare numbers, these are the numbers you're not using. So like I'm like well over my account limit, I can click on the box in front of them to get rid of some of these numbers. And now I have the option to delete up here at the top. I click on delete. And now these numbers are no longer on my account. So I've saved a little money per month. Now you have the option to buy number, right? Local toll free, same options as before, right? terms of toll-free prefix or local, enter the area code. It would just add them here in your spare number list, and then you would make use of them later. So for instance, you know your company is going to expand into new locations. You can add numbers at those locations ahead of time. So that way, once the locations are open or about to open, right, you can activate the number on the account. Right? You don't have to scramble and add it one later. A port actually starts the port process. You give it a name, choose local or toll-free, click next. Now the system wants you to upload a copy of your bill. It's going to ask you for the address associated on that bill, right, and with your phone number. It's going to ask you for which phone number or numbers that you want to port to us, right? And that just means you're moving it from, say, AT&T to Virtual PBX, right? One carrier to another. It will then let you download a blank letter of agency or LOA, and then upload a completed and signed LOA, right? That LOA, right? It's going to ask you for like your company name, the address, and the name of the person authorizing it and signature. The company name and address, right? That should match what your carrier has on file for the phone numbers. Same with the authorization name. That's typed out, and it does require a signature. Now, that can be a digital signature file. That's fine. Or you can print it out, sign it physically and scan it back in. But if you just type in the name twice, that will get rejected. So definitely do not do that. In general, toll-free numbers port in about 3 to 5 business days. Local numbers average about 2 to 3 weeks. And that assumes everything is correct. If we get an error or a rejection, right, the rejection reason isn't always very specific. It will say things like unauthorized user, right? And that could just be, we got the wrong name, or they couldn't read the name, possibly. Address mismatch is usually the most common. And in that case, they sometimes will tell us it's the street address or the zip code. Sometimes they don't. They just say address mismatch. At that point, we communicate, at that point, we double check to make sure there wasn't a typo somewhere. Letters or numbers transposed, that sort of thing. If we verify that nothing like that happened, then we have to ask you, what's the proper address, right? Which means you might have to go back to the current carrier to find out what information they're actually looking for to allow the number to port out. Oh, one thing I should also bring up, if you're porting a cell phone number, right? When that cell phone number port completes, the cell phone that it was associated with will no longer work until you get it a new number from your cell phone provider. All right, users, right? This is where you can see the users on your account. The little gray suit or gray person icon, right? That's your standard user. Person with the blue suit, that's your system admin, right? That can do all the things we can do here. You can obviously have multiple admins. Up here at the top is where you would add a new user, and you're essentially filling out the form. All right, first name, last name, pretty easy. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? So you can't reuse an email address for multiple people. Then you would enter in a password for the new user, and then you create an extension number. Now, this system was started with extension 1000, so it's saying the next available one is 1014. I don't have to follow that. Right? So let's say you're opening a new business, and you're like, okay, people on the new business, you're starting with extension 5000s instead, right? You could do that. All right, by default, the system will create a new voicemail box for this user. This voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So for instance, you can finish creating the user, and then you immediately add a VoIP phone to this user. They could pick up their VoIP phone, hit *98, right? That's the feature code to log in or auto log into the voicemail box or to a specific voicemail box, right? The system will then, since that VoIP phone's already assigned to the user, we'll walk them through creating a PIN number for their voicemail box as well as creating their voicemail greeting. Here's your option to be in the user directory. You can change that later. You have an option here to send to an alternate address. Now, by default, any emails the system will send to this user are going to go to the email address used for login, right? So voicemail notifications, right? Password resets would all go to the email address used for login. If for some reason you don't want to use that, right, then you would click send to an alternate address and then enter in a different email address in the box. And you can always adjust this later as well. And then lastly, send credentials to the user. I personally think that should be automatically checked for you. I do strongly recommend checking it here. And then if you only need to add one user, click on create user. Otherwise, create user and add another, right? But send credentials to the user simply just sends them an email saying, here's your login information. Once a user is created, you can click on their name, right? You can change their name. If you click on change credentials, you can change their email address and their password. You also have the option here to send them the password reset email, right? So then they can change the password themselves. Voicemail box PIN, you just enter a 4-digit temporary PIN number. Here's your option to send to an alternate address. All right, I can uncheck it to remove it or leave it as is. And then here's the option to be in the user directory or not. This pull down over here to the right allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. Then we have the time zone. And this would be so like voicemail timestamps are in the correct time for the user. Then we have the display language, right? So this is for what the web page's language is displayed. You have English, French, German, and Russian. You have ringing timeout. The default on ringing timeout is 20 seconds. On this user, it's grayed out because I'm making use of the feature called Follow Me. So the Follow Me settings override the default ringing timeout. Yeah, the main extension and the caller ID privacy default is usually fine. Obviously, if you make any changes, click on Save Changes. You can click on the extension box for a user. If you ever need to change an extension for someone, I usually recommend, right, click Add the new extension number, especially if it's not in use. Right, then click Save Changes, then come back, click on the extension box again, and then click Unassign next to the extension you want to get rid of, and then click on Save Changes. Right, users can have their own phone numbers or multiple phone numbers if they want to, or if you want them to. Just like in groups, this phone number is available 24/7, right? Because it's not a main number or auto attendant phone number. So it doesn't follow your hours of operation. You can add devices directly to a user. You can either add from spare, right? So devices you already have on the account, or just add a new device. Softphone is the biggest difference. Because once you get here, notice at the bottom, I have an extra section here. It says use third-party application, and it's currently grayed out. If I click on it, it flips it to say use Virtual PBX application. So now I just need to type in a name, right? Bob's phone. I click on create device, and then I click on save changes. When I click on save changes, Cody here will get an email with his login credentials for the softphone and a download link. Right, so the Virtual PBX softphone uses different credentials than what you use them to log in at dash.virtualpbx.com. The other device that tends to be easier to add here is the web phone. You just give it a name, create device, save changes. The web phone uses your dash login at webphone.virtualpbx.net using Chrome or Firefox. Right, users has features. Right, caller ID number, you can only turn this on for a user that has their own phone number. And what you do is you select the number on the user, save changes. This phone number becomes their outbound caller ID from their VoIP phones instead of your main company number. Call forward. your users can turn call forwarding on themselves. They can do that via the user portal. A failover mode is an admin setting. And basically this is if the VoIP phone on the user becomes unregistered and a call happens to come into the user at that time, failover mode will automatically forward to the phone number you designate, right? Landline or cell phone. Now, for call forwarding, the number you put here should not already be a device on the user, right? So if Aaron has his personal cell phone already as a device, I don't need to forward it to his cell phone because we're already going to be offering the call to his cell phone. So if you have, this is page, right? So if this is his personal cell phone, I don't need to forward it to it, right? Because we're already going to offer calls to his cell phone, right? If I add forwarding to that cell phone number, I'm causing a loop, and he may never be able to answer that call. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature. You create a hot desk ID, that's 4 digits. So especially useful if you're making use of 4-digit extensions, just make the hot desk ID match their extension number and click on Save Changes. This is for a shared office environment, right? So Aaron comes in the office on Tuesday. He sits down at desk number 1, picks up the handset, hits *11. That turns on hot desking on that phone. The system will prompt him for his hot desk ID. He enters it, and then it will tell him calls will now be sent to this device. Now, for the rest of his day, calls will come to him where at the phone he's sitting at. End of his day, he picks up the phone, hits *12, hot desk ID, and then calls will no longer be offered to him at that phone. Next time he comes into the office, right? Felicia's sitting at desk number 1, so he waves hi. He walks over, he sits down at desk number 11, does the same thing, *11, hot desk ID, and now he's getting calls at that phone. Voicemail box, right? This is enabled because we created it with the user. These are default settings. Transcription is actually a plan-specific feature. It's where the system listens to the voicemail message and tries to type it out in the email notification. It does the best it can. It's, if there's a lot of background noise, a lot of wind noise, then it may have trouble with the transcription. But these settings basically tell me calls come in, and then we immediately send a voicemail or an email out to the user with an attachment. Now that email has the date, the time, and phone numbers involved, right? And then an MP3 file that they can double click on and listen to. You also have the option here to delete messages after that notification is sent out. Voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and will not accept any more. Now, if you do the delete after notification, that means the only way your staff member can access their voicemails is via the emails. So if for some reason they don't get the emails, right, that voicemail is lost for the most part. But if your staff is good about going through and clearing out their voicemails, then you don't have to have that deleted, which means they can then call in over the phone and listen to their voicemails, or they can use a user portal to listen to their voicemails. Faxbox, users can have their own Faxbox if you want them to. It's generally not necessary. You have the option here to use a phone number, right, spare number by new, or an extension. I recommend using a phone number because that means that user from that point forward can send and receive faxes, right? If you use an extension number only, that means this user can only receive inbound faxes. They're not going to be able to send out because when the system, when Aaron here would send an email, the system looks at his user and says, oh, he has a fax box. I'm using that information to send out, including for caller ID. And the only thing it will pull from for caller ID is the extension number. It's not long enough, so the fax fails. Conference bridge, right? You enable the conference bridge, and then as an admin, you just need to set up a conference room number, a PIN number, click on Save Changes. Your staff members can adjust their PIN numbers themselves via the user portal. Follow me is for users with multiple devices. This allows you to control, as an admin, what devices ring in which order. So let's set this back to disabled. So when you first enable it, it looks like this. The system wants you to tell it what devices you actually want to enable and make use of, right? So you uncheck the devices you want to use, and now you have these little green dot lines, right? So you can click and drag them to customize it. But just like ring groups, right? This is a ringing time set to 120. You can click distribute. So now you can ring in order, right? You can click and drag and change the order. And then click Save Changes. Music on hold. You can choose to have users have their own hold music, right? You just upload a file, .wave, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono. And then click upload and then save changes. Again, that's after they press hold on their VoIP phone. Customize call recording. So when you first enable it, it looks like this. You need to tell the system what kind of calls do you want to record. Inbound internal is a coworker call, right? Another Dash user called Aaron. Right? Inbound external, customer call, right? Someone outside the system called Aaron. Right? Outbound internal means Aaron called another Dash user. Outbound external means Aaron called someone else outside the system, right? Called customer Mary. And then you click on Save Changes. Now, every account includes some amount of data storage included. It's going to vary by plan. Once you go over that, you encounter data storage overages. For the specifics, you'd want to double check with our account services team. If you have heavy volume and you're going to record every call, you definitely want to look at AWS, right? Amazon Web Services for your storage. You can link AWS to your Dash account. There's no extra charge for that integration. And then you can basically store your call recordings at AWS, which is much cheaper than us, at least last I checked. Oh, and then do not disturb means you put a user on do not disturb, so they won't be offered calls. All right, voicemail boxes. These show your voicemail boxes on the account. Anything with a name here, that means that was a user the voicemail box that was created with the user. If there's a blank here, like this new VM box, right, that was created manually, which you do up here at the top, add voicemail box. You give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and then you can click on Create New Voicemail Box. Once it's created, right, you can click here so you can, these two pieces of information is what you would use to record a voicemail greeting over the phone. Right, so from your main number that rings to a virtual receptionist. Otherwise, under Advanced Greeting Media, you can upload a media file, right, directly to the voicemail box, or choose from the pull down from an existing file. If you select something for temporary, the temporary file will play instead of the media file. Right? The temporary is your vacation or out of office voicemail message. Once you set it back to none, the media file will play normally. Recipients. Now, for your user created, the voicemail box is created for the users. They have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. For a manually created voicemail box, you would need to add recipients. You just click Add New Recipient. You put the email address here. If you only need one, then you would just click Save. Otherwise, you would click Add again to add a second or third or fourth email address. Even for your user-created voicemail boxes, right? If we go here to recipients, you can add additional recipients, right? So if the manager of a department wants to get all the voicemails for her that the staff members get, that's where they would do so. And then lastly, options. So once you've added a media file and a recipient, right, you can go ahead and click on Already Set Up. Up to you if you want to delete after notifications, right? You probably want the attached emails or voicemails to email. All right, advanced routing. This is where direct inward system access is, or DISA. DISA is not immediately available on accounts that for people who just signed up with us, right? That's something they have to talk to our account services team about. What DISA does, it allows you to call in with your, say, your cell phone, right, to your main number that goes to the virtual receptionist. Wow. You'll then be able to log in over the phone. You'll hear dial tone again, and then you can make an outbound call. When you make that outbound call, it won't be your cell phone number that shows up as the outbound caller ID. It's going to be your main company number. So we'll go back here for reference, right? It'll be this 323 phone number instead of your cell phone number. All right, so once account services has it activated on your account, you would click enable here. And by default, it assigns a PIN number. Now, in this setup, you can then assign it as a menu option under your virtual receptionist. I do not recommend that because there are not that many menu options. And once someone figures out that this kind of feature exists, sooner or later, a bad actor will come along, try to figure out the PIN number. They can make outbound calls on your account and you won't know about it. So what I suggest is you click Edit Settings here, click Add an Extension. Now, again, this system started with extension 1000. If you're going to use DISA, use an extension number that doesn't go inside with my normal other extension numbers, just to make it, again, that much harder for someone to figure out. Click Save Changes. So now I can call into my main number, right, that rings to the virtual receptionist. I hear the main greeting. I enter in this extension number, right, up here, that only my staff members should know. I will then be prompted to enter this PIN number. Then I'll hear dial tone. I just enter area code and phone number that I want to reach. I make that outbound call. And again, instead of my cell phone number, it's my main company number that shows up as the outbound caller ID. Now, again, the reason for all the security feature is it because if someone figures it out, they can make outbound calls on your account. That means they can increase your bill on you without you knowing it. Go ahead and disable this. Now, one way you might be able to catch that happening is under the call logs. In the call logs here, you can see I have this left arrow, yellow arrow. That's an outbound call. So I can click on it to get more details, and I see, oh, this is coming from a web phone. That's going to be a legit call, right? One of my staff members. This green arrow to the right, that's a call that's coming into the system. It looks like they didn't actually reach out to the device. But I can go here, and you see this call here went through and hit this web phone. But the inbound caller hung up. That's what originator cancel means. Right up here, you can see this call came in, but no one answered. So here, this call came in, and that there was blind transfers happening, and then normal clearing, meaning the call connected and ended normally. Now, each one of these tabs, right, there's a download link, so it downloads it as a CSV file. So if you're good with spreadsheets, right, you can do more sorting. The custom, you can select your date range and then download like a whole month at once. Now, the system lets you go back up to 1 year of call logs. Our engineering team can go back an additional 6 months, so up to 18 months. After that, the data is lost. Right? We can't recover it. So if you need your call log details for compliance reasons, then I would recommend downloading these files at least every month. If you have heavy call volume, you might have to go week by week for your downloads, just because the larger data sets take a lot longer, and sometimes don't even, well, I haven't tried a large data set recently, but I know a few years ago when I tried to do a large one, it just didn't, it took forever, and then it didn't give me everything. All right, feature codes. I've talked about a couple of these. These are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phones. This information is on our support pages, right? There's a feature codes doc. There is also a phone commands cheat sheet document. I'd recommend making use of that, as that actually has a brief description of how to make use of the feature codes. All right, so that was the dashboard, and it looks like I am behind, so let's see if I can get through the rest of this here. Blacklists is an included feature. This allows you to block calls from specific phone numbers from reaching your system. So you would click Edit Blacklists, you would click Add, you would give it a name, and then you decide, are you blocking anonymous calls or not? Right? If you turn this on, that means if we don't get the valid inbound caller ID, we're blocking the call. Right? They get a busy tone. Right? And then after that, you click on Add Number. You put +1 area code and phone number. And if you only need to add the one number, right, you click Save. If you need to add more, just click Add. And again, +1 area code, phone number. No dashes, no parentheses, no spaces. And you can keep adding to these lists as time goes on. Right? Once you're done, you click Save, and then you go back to Settings. And then you just want to make sure that your list is over here on the right under Selected. So my block list is currently active. This other list, this new list, is not active, meaning any phone numbers on it, they can still get through. Right? So you definitely want to make sure it's on the right. Then click Update. And now that list is fully in effect. So any phone numbers that are listed on this block list, when they try to reach any of my phone numbers on my account, they get busy tone. All right, call recording. By default, this will open up a new tab and take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. You would just use your Dash login, and you can view your call recordings. All right, you can play them, download them, delete them. If you make use of AWS storage and you have it all set up, when you click on call recording, it will take you to the AWS storage page, and then again, you can interact with your recordings. Monitor is a plan-specific feature, so it's on some plans, not others. This allows you to see presence of your users. It doesn't matter what phone they're using, right? So you can see who's available, right? Who's busy. You can switch it to devices, so you can see what devices are in use. Over here, you see the incoming. You can see incoming calls, so who they're speaking to, and on what devices. Under part calls, if there's an active part call, you'll see it listed here as well as their parking spot number. Reports will open up a new tab. This is the advanced reporting feature. It is a plan-specific feature. Unfortunately, my streaming software won't let me open up the new tab to show it to you. So I would recommend on our YouTube channel, under videos, you're looking for the advanced reporting demo. It will show you what you can do. But basically, it allows you to create your own reports to get a better idea of how your system and how your staff are handling calls. Voicemails is an included feature, right? This is your voicemail manager. So as an admin, you can get to any voicemail box on the account. You can see their voicemails, right? So you can see the date and the time, the phone number it came from, the phone number it rang to, how long the voicemail is. You can play it back. You can download it. You can see some additional details. Also, as an admin, when you put a check mark in front of it, you can move it to a different voicemail box. Likewise, under here, this is where you can mark it for deletion. So like if voicemail box is full, you can start getting rid of voicemail boxes, or voicemails, excuse me. Integration AWS, this would allow you to create the service to link your account to AWS. It's not on by default. So if that's something you want to do, you're going to need to contact our account services team. Acd Cues. Acd stands for Automatic Call Distribution. This is a call center feature. It's actually an upgrade to existing plans. So it is possible you might have to change plans and then add Acd Cues on top. Now, for specifics of the pricing of all that, you definitely need to talk to account services. This has changed several times, and I've lost track of where we're at on the queues, so I do apologize. What you see here are our standard Acd Cues. We also have Acd Cues Pro. An account can only have one or the other, cannot have both, so I can only show you the one. But on our YouTube channel, under videos, we have an Acd Cues Pro demo. So I encourage you to take a look at that if you're interested in queues at all. So when you create a queue, I'm just going to click on a gear icon here for an existing queue. But first, you give it a name, and then you choose to have an extension number or a phone number. Right? That phone number would be available 24/7, right? Because it's not a main number, not an auto attendant. Right? Then you have the queue routing strategy. This pull down unfortunately doesn't work, but you have several different routing strategies to choose from. Under standard queues, you have ring all, right? So it rings everybody at once. The pro queues don't have ring all. I don't know why. Round robin, which is what this one is set up to, means it will equalize the calls among your staff members over time. Right? Most idle means whoever's been waiting for the call the longest gets the next call that comes in. Least calls is for whoever has the least amount of connected calls, right? So calls where they spoke to the inbound caller. And then least offered is the combination of missed and connected calls, right? So it doesn't matter if they connected, just how many times they were offered a caller. So whoever has the least amount of those gets the next call. Hold treatment, which is a little cut off here, but allows you to upload a media file. Right, .wave, .mp3, .ogg, or you select an existing file on the system. On the pro queues, in addition to a hold music file, you can actually have multiple different media files play, but you can also announce the position in line or the expected wait time. The queue timeout, measured in seconds. This is how much time your inbound callers can wait on hold, measured in seconds. So this is 1 hour. The queue call limit, you can limit the number of people who can wait on hold. Now this one is set at 4, meaning I can have 4 people wait on hold on top of whoever else is speaking to my staff members. If I change this to 0, that means there's no limit. Timeout immediately if empty. If this is enabled, this means if I have no staff members logged into a queue and a call comes into the queue, the system will treat it as if they've hit this 3,600 second timeout. That's where escalation call flow after timeout comes into play. So after that 3,600 seconds, where do you want to send a call? You have a pull down here. You just select the destination, right? User, group, another queue, back to the main menu, voicemail, etc. And then the 0 out to call flow. If you choose something here, that means you're enabling the ability for your inbound caller to press 0 while they wait hold. If they press 0, again, pull down, where are you sending them? Another group, another queue, main menu, voicemail, user, device, etc. Over here under agent behavior, right, we have agent recovery timeout. This is how much time the system gives the agent before it offers them a second call, right? So call comes in, is offered to Bob. Bob handles the call, right? The call ends. This timer starts. After 15 seconds, he will automatically go into ready mode and the system can offer him a second call from the queue. Force away on reject or missed if this is enabled. This means if call comes into a user, right, one of your staff members, they miss it, right? They don't answer the call. The system puts them in away mode automatically. The user will then have to mark themselves as ready manually. And then Agent Connect Timeout, default is 20 seconds, which is plenty because on queues, you can only accept calls on a VoIP phone. So 20 seconds is typically plenty. So when you create a queue, you click on Create Queue, otherwise save changes. Now, once you've created a queue, over here on the left, click on the little members icon, right, the person with the headset. This list here is all the people who are currently available to be in an Acd queue. It doesn't mean they're assigned to a queue yet. It just means they're available to be assigned. If you click on Manage Members here, right, now that list that we first saw is over here on the right, right? So these are my call center members. Over here on the left, these are my staff members who are not yet available or able to go into a queue. If I want to add somebody, I click on their name, and I can click on multiple people, right, and click Add as Members, and now it moves them over to the right. And then I can go back to the queue list, right, the 3 stacked boxes. Now, if I click on a queue, right, I have multiple staff members already logged in. Down here, I have agents. I can add some of these available people over into this queue, right? So now the number increased. Once you've added agents, then you can click Managers. And you can click and drag one of your existing agents to be a manager of that queue. All right. So let's end this session here. All right. So for your staff members who are assigned to a queue, right, they'll click over the menu icon. They'll have Acd Cues and user portal, right? So they would click on queues to get to this page. They would then click on Begin Session. Now that logs them in, and on the standard queues, they start off in away mode. Especially that first time they log in, or any time they have changed their VoIP phones. They want to click on this little phone icon here and make sure they have selected the device. By default, the system uses select all. This is not recommended. You definitely want to specify the specific device, and then click on the handset icon again, and then they can mark themselves as ready. I want from red to green, right? So ready, unready to ready. So this means I'm waiting to accept a call. When a call comes in and I'm offered a call, I'll turn light blue. When I'm actually connected, right, so I'm speaking to the other person, I'll turn a darker blue. If I'm on an external call, so a call outside of the queue, I'll have my bar here will be yellow. And if I'm on wrap-up time, it's on gold. Pro queues also have a middle icon here. So a manager or an admin can compare agents to each other directly in terms of like calls handled, etc. Also on the pro queues, admins can eavesdrop on a call, right? They can listen in to an agent's call. They can whisper to the agent. They can also barge in on a call. There's also more metrics available, at least viewable here in the pro queues than it is on the standard queues. Right, so when an agent goes to lunch, they just mark themselves as away and then end of their shift and session, right? So then they won't take any calls from the queue. Right, dynamic caller ID. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phones. Right, so this first one here I have is by 408. Right, so I named it 408. I chose a 408 number on my account. Right, this pull down will only show numbers on your account. And then I said, for the rule, I'm just saying when they dial a 408 phone number, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to 408 and then save changes. The other thing I could do is over here where I created a feature code. So my staff members on their VoIP phones had to dial *550. Then they enter the area code and phone number they're reaching out to. Right? When the system sees that *550, it automatically changes their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number, and that shows up on the person's phone that they're calling to. Now, for the feature codes, I do recommend star and then 3 digits, so that way you won't run into issues with the feature codes on the system itself. Faxes, this is the fax manager, so you can see the faxes that have come into the system, right? The date, the time, the number it came from, where it came to, the pages, you can download it here. If it's a failure, you would click on this little last icon here to see the details. Right, outbound faxes, similar idea. Let's see. I don't know if anyone has said it. Oh, here we go. So here you see outbound faxes that were successful. Date, the time, the phone number involved, pages, you can download the details. So if you see a failure here, you would definitely want to click on the details. A failure on the outbound fax tab here, that means the system had a problem communicating with the other fax machine. You could see things like user busy, right? The number was busy at the time we tried the fax attempt. You could see no answer, right? So it kept ringing and ringing, that sort of thing. And in those instances, you'd probably want to A, double check the fax number, and B, retry. The email to fax logs, this shows you errors that happened with the system processing the request. So that means we didn't even try the other fax number yet. We actually had a problem with the email that came in. So you see the email addresses involved. You see the format of the email, the to field of the email, right? So you see like these two are definitely correct, right? These two are missing the +1, so that's probably the issue there, right? Date, time, little eyeball icon. If you click on it, we'll give you some more details. And here I see no valid attachments. Now, this could be simply because the person forgot to put the attachments on. It could be they used a file format other than PDF or TIFF. Right? Let's see. And so here we're saying, hey, this email address is not a user, right? They're not allowed to fax out, right? They don't have proper permissions. Number manager, that takes you back to our spare number page. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature. You actually need to talk to our sales team to get more information about this, but this webhooks allows you to link Dash to other software. We have a webinar on the YouTube channel for, I believe it's an introduction to Zapier, which is another integration. But basically, you would add a webhook, and now you're getting into programming, which is beyond our support capabilities. But you're basically telling the system, okay, what information or what data you're trying to get. And then you need that other software because that's where we're sending it to, and that other software will then present it to you. Right? So Zapier would be one of those other softwares, AutoCode, etc. So if you're interested in this, you definitely want to talk to our sales team. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com and see sample code. And then lastly, we have the user portal. Each user has their own individual user portal, right? So as an admin, you can't access another user's user portal. That doesn't really matter because you can get to everything in a just slightly different way. So user portal, they have a voicemail tab that defaults to, right? It will show them any voicemails. If, however, you have chosen on their voicemail box to delete after notification, then nothing will show up here. Call history, they can view their own call history, both to and from. They can adjust the dates. Fax history only applies if they have their own fax box. The contact list tab, this shows the other users, the groups, the attendants, the Acd Cues, etc. on the account. The conference tab, this is where your users would adjust their PIN numbers. That's over here to the right. They also have the ability to say, are people starting muted or deafened when they first enter, as well as play as entry and exit tones. When they're actually in a conference, if they're in their user portal, they can invite other Dash users to their conference, lock the conference so no one else can join, mute everybody, unmute everybody, end the conference call. Also, while they're in a conference, there'll be little tabs for each participant, so they can mute a specific person as well as kick out a specific person. And then lastly, settings and devices. This is where your users would set up their own call forwarding. Right? Little check mark with the +1 area code and phone number, click save. Right? They can also see the status of their devices. All right, and that is everything. I'm sorry I ran so long. I'm not sure why this one took so long. I don't see any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. And I thank you for your time today. We will be back again next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Specific time.